The movie begins with a man engaged in a fierce struggle with a homeless man who had been possessed by a strange creature. Suddenly, the creature extended its tentacles in a bizarre way, and within seconds, it rushed into the man's body completely. After the creature entered his stomach, the man immediately regained his senses. He then looked in horror at the homeless man beside him, who had already been transformed into a mummy. Rescuers arrived at the scene and examined the body lying on the ground. They asked the man what had happened, but he lied and claimed that he had just arrived. He concealed the fact that the creature had entered his body. No one paid much attention to the matter after hearing his explanation, although they were puzzled as to why he still retained his sanity despite being infected, and what exactly that creature was. The story then flashes back to the year 1814, when soldiers serving under Napoleon fled after a crushing defeat. However, they quickly lost their way. Even worse, they accidentally wandered into a Serbian forest spanning nearly 3,000 hectares, where there was no food to be found. At that moment, a woman riding a horse appeared. One of the soldiers was about to ask her for directions when she suddenly asked whether they were hungry. She then offered them the horse. Confused but desperate, the soldier accepted the horse and left. As he walked away, the woman revealed a strange smile. A short time later, the soldier returned to camp with the horse, and the others rushed to prepare it for a meal. But without any warning, the moment a knife pierced the horse's body, it exploded. Instantly, the creature hidden inside the rotten flesh revealed its true form. The soldiers panicked and fled, but the creature had no intention of letting them escape. It began hunting them down mercilessly. Nearly a century later, a team of oil exploration workers arrived in the remote mountains of Serbia. After conducting surveys, they discovered a large oil deposit near an abandoned factory and established a base of operations there. The team's leader was a woman named Emily. After speaking with the crew, she ordered them to begin drilling immediately. However, shortly after the drilling machine started operating, a strong odor resembling spoiled alcohol rose from deep underground. Everyone felt suffocated and could barely keep their eyes open. Emily immediately ordered the workers to stop. After a careful inspection, however, they found nothing unusual. Emily then instructed the crew to resume drilling. Suddenly, the sounds of screaming animals echoed from beneath the ground, and thick smoke began pouring out of the machine. The team assumed they might have drilled into a habitat occupied by wild animals. 2 members of the group held advanced degrees in biology and zoology. As soon as they heard the news, they rushed to the site, accompanied by their guide Nia. They believed Emily should halt the drilling operation immediately. At the same time, Teddy agreed and suggested that the foul smell was probably caused by a large accumulation of garbage underground. He proposed organizing and properly disposing of the waste. Emily looked at him in disbelief and sarcastically suggested that they might as well dig a landfill pit. To her surprise, Teddy seriously replied that they should have done exactly that a long time ago. Even more surprisingly, Sophia and Nick sided with Teddy. Emily became frustrated, but realizing she would have to continue working with them, she patiently explained that a massive drilling platform would soon be erected there, and that they would use hydraulic fracturing to extract oil. Therefore, building a garbage pit nearby made no sense. Teddy laughed after hearing her explanation. Emily then ordered the workers to pull out the drill bit. To everyone's shock, it was covered in a mass of flesh and blood. Emily quickly reassured the crew, claiming it was probably just a coincidence, and that they had likely drilled through the remains of an animal. However, Nikola felt that something was seriously wrong. According to the geological data, a very dense rock layer lay beneath the site, and the drill had penetrated several meters into it. No animal could possibly survive in such conditions. Nikola collected several samples and took them to the laboratory for analysis. Meanwhile, Teddy and Sophia were cleaning up trash in the forest, still planning to create a designated waste pit. While looking around, Teddy suddenly stopped Dano, the excavator operator, because he noticed something moving inside the pit. The rotten odor was also much stronger than before. The others rushed over after hearing the news and gathered around the massive pit, preparing to find out exactly what was inside. Then things became even stranger. Whatever was inside the pit started speaking, in French. Emily immediately called Teddy over to translate. Teddy listened carefully and informed everyone that the man kept repeating, "Help me! Help me!" As bizarre as the situation seemed, the group decided to rescue him. At that moment, John reminded everyone that the man clearly had something wrong with him. No human being could survive underground, and they knew absolutely nothing about his identity or background. For safety reasons, he argued that they should lock him inside the abandoned factory until they learn more. But Emily completely rejected the idea and ignored John's concerns. Not only did she rescue the man, but she also arranged for several team members to look after him. Later, Teddy brought the man a cup of water. The stranger appeared extremely agitated and continued talking nonstop. Mia asked Teddy to translate what the man was saying, but Teddy explained that he only knew a little French and couldn't understand the sentence at all. Since nobody else at the base spoke French, everyone was genuinely confused. Suddenly, the man lunged forward and grabbed Teddy. Nick quickly stepped in to calm him down, but then backed away in fear and told Teddy and the others that he had seen a tentacle coming out of the man's nose. Teddy brushed it off, insisting that Nick had probably mistaken a strand of mucus for a tentacle. A moment later, the man seemed to feel something strange and sat back down. Then he said another phrase that Teddy happened to understand. Teddy told everyone that the man was saying there was something living inside him. Emily approached the man, and everyone noticed that he kept pointing at his neck. They quickly realized that he was begging them to kill him. Nick immediately called Emily over and insisted that he had not imagined the tentacle. He was certain that something had actually come out of the man's nose and believed the phenomenon needed to be studied. He asked Sophia to bring the necessary equipment and called the others over to help him. He collected a skin sample from the man and then drew some blood for testing. Nick asked who would help restrain the man, and John volunteered right away. But the moment John grabbed him, a tentacle suddenly emerged from the man's nose. Everyone was shocked by what they saw and finally realized that some kind of parasitic creature was living inside him. Emily immediately ordered the man to be isolated. Several team members were assigned to guard him in shifts, and she decided that once the road down the mountain was repaired, they would transfer him to the proper authorities. After everyone dispersed, Teddy worried that the man might be hungry and prepared dinner for him. John, who was standing nearby, told Teddy that the man was clearly suffering because of the creature inside him. He argued that they should respect his wishes and allow him to end his life. He also warned that the parasite might infect other people, making it dangerous to keep him nearby. When Teddy remained silent, John offered to deliver the food himself and take over the guard shift. Carrying the meal, John replaced Emily as the guard. The man immediately began eating as soon as he saw the food. Meanwhile, John pulled out a knife and started playing with it. The man desperately pleaded in French for John to give it to him. John asked whether he had truly decided to take his own life. Suddenly, a nearby noise distracted John. Seizing the opportunity, the man grabbed the knife. But when he tried to cut his throat, the blade simply would not move close enough to harm him. It became obvious that the creature inside him would not allow him to die. The monster then extended its tentacles. John rushed forward to restrain the man but underestimated the strength he possessed while under the creature's control. The man slammed John to the ground, and the same scene shown at the beginning of the movie played out once again. Later, Emily asked John whether he had touched the man. John immediately denied it, claiming he hadn't seen anything unusual. He said he had only gone to the bathroom and, upon returning, found that the man had somehow turned into a mummy. Emily then told John that he needed to take a shower because, for some strange reason, he now smelled like spoiled alcohol as well. Embarrassed, John asked what they should do with the body. Emily replied that they should leave it where it was for now, as that would make things easier for the police investigation later. At that moment, Nick received the laboratory results and hurried over to Emily, excited by what he had discovered. He explained that the blood test showed the man had been suffering from mild anemia. However, the most important findings came from the skin tissue analysis, where they discovered nucleated cells that clearly did not belong to a human being. Nick believed the cells resembled a type of algae known as dinoflagellates. These organisms often form parasitic or symbiotic relationships with other life forms. He suggested that the creature living inside the man might be genetically related to this species. Nick and Sophia became even more excited. They were convinced that if they could understand the creature and discover how it enabled humans to survive underground, their research would make history. Nick also pointed out that when they first found the man, he had been covered in a slimy layer resembling the inner membrane of an eggshell. According to their theory, that substance had served as an incubation chamber for the creature. Based on the evidence they had gathered so far, Nicola believed the organism belonged to a highly advanced species. Unfortunately, he assumed it would probably die along with its host. What none of them knew was that the parasite had already transferred itself to John. As for John, he hadn't noticed anything obviously wrong, but deep down he knew something had entered his body. He stood in front of a mirror, studying his reflection. His roommate had no idea what was happening and jokingly accused him of being narcissistic. John replied that the man they had rescued had something strange inside him, and now the same thing was inside him as well. His roommate immediately asked what he meant, but John admitted he wasn't sure. He said he hadn't even realized anything was there until it had already settled inside his stomach. The roommate assumed John was joking. Wanting to prove it, John told him to smell his breath and body odor, insisting that the foul, fermented smell was evidence of the creature's presence. The roommate still wasn't convinced, and joked that John probably just needed a shower. That response made John furious. He became determined to prove he was telling the truth. His roommate then suggested they wrestle. Maybe the creature would reveal itself if it sensed a stronger opponent. John thought the idea made sense, and the two began grappling. Just as expected, John's roommate easily overpowered him and mocked him for being weak. Suddenly, John punched him hard, sending him crashing to the floor. At that moment, the creature apparently decided that John was incapable of handling the situation on his own and took action. A tentacle shot out, grabbed the man, and hurled him into a table. The impact killed him instantly. John was horrified by what had happened, but he told no one. The following morning, he dragged his roommate's body behind the mountain. After making sure nobody was watching, he planned to bury it. Before he could start, however, he spotted a vehicle approaching in the distance. Terrified, John dragged the corpse into a nearby cabin and tried to compose himself so he could speak calmly with the newcomer. Unfortunately, the bloodstains on his clothes immediately drew suspicion. Moments later, the newcomer discovered the body hidden behind John. When Danko realized that a team member had been killed, he instantly drew his pistol and prepared to shoot John. Before he could react further, however, he heard a strange noise coming from underneath the vehicle. Danko turned toward the sound, and the creature suddenly attacked him. After the parasite infected Danko, he was overwhelmed by despair and decided to take his own life. But while under the creature's control, he accidentally fired the gun instead. Emily and the rest of the team arrived at the scene. After Danko explained what had happened, he begged them to kill him immediately. However, Emily took his gun and refused to do as he asked. Instead, she went to examine the bodies first. The other two men had died in horrific ways, while John had been transformed into a grotesque mass of flesh. Despite the horrifying sight, Emily remained calm and composed. She ordered the workers to return with a container so they could transport the bodies. She then approached Danko and gently reassured him. Once he had calmed down, she asked him what had happened. Danko explained that John had been the first person infected by the parasite, and that he was responsible for killing the other two men. But now the creature had moved into Danko's body. Emily was shocked to learn that the parasite had transferred to Danko. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. Once again, Danko pleaded with everyone to kill him, but no one was willing to do it. A short time later, Sophia arrived at the scene. Excited by the discovery, she collected samples of John's flesh. Meanwhile, Danko returned to the base after everyone convinced him to come back. Teddy wanted to tell everyone that the parasite had infected Danko, but Emily stopped him. At that point, nobody knew how many people had already been infected, and she feared that revealing the truth would cause widespread panic. Emily believed they should monitor this situation and wait for Nicola's research results before making any major decisions. Suddenly, one of the workers rushed over looking for Emily. He reported that Danko had completely lost his mind and that no one knew what he might do next. Everyone viewed him as a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. To protect the group, Luca volunteered to deal with Danko himself. Emily immediately rejected the idea, but Luca gave her an ultimatum. If she couldn't come up with a better solution within a set amount of time, he would be forced to kill Danko just as they had done with the others. Luca then locked Danko up. As Danko stared at the mummy beside him, his mental state deteriorated even further. Emily asked him how large the creature was. Danko explained that it was roughly the size of a soccer ball, but it could change size. Whenever the host's emotions became unstable, the creature would grow larger and move through the body like an octopus squeezing through a narrow opening. He also revealed that the creature could sense everyone's movements and seemed aware of everything happening around it. If it detected danger, it would immediately transfer itself to a new host. At the same time, Sophia made a new discovery during her research. She frantically searched through scientific materials as if she had suddenly remembered something important. Emily pulled Teddy aside and told him that the creature appeared to prefer male hosts. She and Sophia had both tried interacting with it multiple times, but it showed no interest in either of them. It seemed capable of surviving only by inhabiting male bodies. Meanwhile, Nick approached Danko while fantasizing about how his research would amaze the scientific community. He could barely contain his excitement. Danko begged Nick to help remove the creature, but Nick insisted that he should consider himself lucky instead. Nick theorized that after the creature merged with the man they had pulled from underground, it had laid eggs inside his body. Once the man reached the surface, the offspring hatched, and now those young creatures had been transferred into Danko's body. Nick believed it was Danko's responsibility to nurture the newborn creatures until they became capable of surviving outside a human host. His bizarre explanation left everyone stunned. Even Sophia stopped defending her mentor and accused him of losing his mind because of his obsession with fame and fortune. Nick refused to listen. He convinced himself that everyone was simply jealous of him. He then threatened the group, declaring that he would never forgive anyone who harmed the young creatures. When Luca's deadline expired, Nick still hadn't provided any useful solutions, only increasingly irrational theories. As a result, Emily reluctantly allowed Luca to take Danko away. Before he left, Emily gave several instructions to the group and specifically warned Luca to keep a close eye on Nia and make sure everyone stayed well away from Danko while carrying out the plan. Luca and the others chose a location behind the mountain. However, they seemed to have forgotten Emily's warning entirely. Afraid that Danko might escape, they deliberately moved too close to him. Danko repeatedly warned them to stay back, but they ignored him. When they saw him stepping backward, they immediately opened fire. After several shots, Danko suddenly exploded. The group stood frozen in shock. They couldn't understand why he had transformed into the same fleshy mass that John had become. Determined to find answers, they searched the area for clues. Suddenly, one of the workers fell to the ground screaming. The others rushed over to see what had happened. At first, it appeared to be a minor injury. But in the next instant, the man spotted the creature. He tried to shoot it, but accidentally shot one of his coworkers instead. At the same time, Nick was locked inside a room. When he heard the gunshots, he broke down crying, convinced that the creature had been killed. He began ranting that humanity had no right to claim ownership of the earth, and that people always killed any life form they considered dangerous. Then he said something even more disturbing. He shouted that the octopus-like creature could lay thousands of eggs at a time. Meanwhile, Luca and the others heard the gunfire and rushed toward the area. By the time they arrived, the worker was already dead. They nervously looked around and split up to search the surroundings. When the bald man reached a tree, he heard a strange noise coming from above. He looked up. At the same moment, a nearby woman heard the sound as well and hurried over. As soon as she realized the bald man had been infected, she shot him without hesitation. The creature immediately tried to transfer itself into her, but after realizing she wasn't a suitable host, it retreated. The woman fired at the creature. Just then, Luca arrived. Mistakenly believing that the woman had been infected, he shot her without hesitation. Afterward, Luca returned to the base alone. Emily immediately asked where the others were. Before he could answer, Nick rushed forward and demanded to know whether the creature was dead. Luca remained silent and started walking away. When Emily realized he wasn't going to talk, she led everyone behind the mountain to investigate for themselves. Nick continued following Luca, constantly asking questions about the creature. Finally, Luca snapped. He angrily shouted that all of his friends had died because of the monster, that the creature was now living inside him, and that he would never be able to return to his normal life. The moment Nick heard that, he urgently begged Luca not to kill the creature. But Luca had no interest in listening anymore. He called Emily over to deliver his final message. Then, overwhelmed by despair, he walked into the lake. As soon as he died, his body exploded. Nick moved closer to examine what had happened, but the creature suddenly extended a tentacle and wrapped it around his waist. For the first time, Nick was terrified. He screamed for everyone to kill the creature immediately. Sophia raised a knife and stabbed at it, but accidentally plunged the blade into Nicola's abdomen instead. The creature immediately prepared to enter through the wound. Emily ordered Teddy and the others to run as fast as they could. By that point, Nicola was already dead, and the creature needed a new host. It attacked Emily first, but abandoned her when it realized she was female. Meanwhile, Teddy and Sophia ran for their lives while the creature relentlessly pursued them. In the final scene, Teddy is seen sitting hopelessly in a bathtub, while Sophia sits silently beside him. A newspaper lying on the floor reports that the oil exploration team was involved in a mysterious incident that left 10 people dead under strange circumstances. It becomes clear that the creature successfully infected Teddy. The movie ends there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget that your opinion matters to us, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel.